of the Stade de France itself, well, the capacity of that stadium, the biggest in France, is 80,000, but this is going to be the smallest ever number of people in the Stade de France.
And the previous lowest record in the Stade de France is in the 30,000, so that would obliterate the lowest record for the turnout. Now, interestingly, Belgium was faced with a similar episode, and they ended up moving their game to Hungary.
Italy took a slightly different approach, and they found a relatively tiny city, Udine, hard to get to, and hosted the match there. I think what you're likely to see happen, especially after this, is that cities just step in and say, listen, we don't want anything to do with this.
I think we've seen an escalation where Israel plays an away game in Glasgow against the women's Scottish national team. And it has to be played in an empty stadium because basically the fans are not having it. And they literally close the stadium entirely. It's played behind closed doors. Anybody who remembers football during COVID remembers how untenable that is. The spectacle is completely dead.
And we already know that Maccabi Tel Aviv's next away match, which was supposed to be in Istanbul, is going to be hosted in Debrecen, because you cannot host a normal football match when you have to welcome these types of supporters into your city. I think just cities are going to wash their hands of it because it costs the taxpayer a lot of money.
So what that leaves is that football civil society, the fans themselves, are starting to take more and more action. So you have football fans, certainly Glasgow Celtic, more recently Paris Saint-Germain, completely violating the FIFA ban on any demonstrations of support, flying Palestinian flags.
One wonders where that might actually lead UEFA and what kind of decisions UEFA might make.
And I think this is actually going to escalate.
You know what gives me hope these days? The lessons from South Africa and the role sports-related protests played there in disrupting the apartheid. There was actually an incredible moment in 1981. The game was rugby, and it was the apartheid regime's sport of choice. There was no thought of banning South Africa at the time, but then there was the tour of New Zealand in 1981. And there was a movement called HART, Halt All Racist Tours. They protested the games, and the cops beat them up brutally, which brought even more people out to protest, and eventually it grew so big to the point of literally disrupting the games. People were coming onto the fields, and the tour was in complete shambles.
Battens and brawls and barbed wire. For 8 weeks in 1981, New Zealand was more war zone than God zone.
And basically the whole nation, New Zealand, split over the rugby tour from South Africa. And as a result, the International Rugby Board banned South Africa from all international competitions. So it didn't stop because the oppressors suddenly grew a conscience and realized, oh, racism is bad. No, it stopped because the protests and the disruption caused by the protests made business as usual impossible. Business being the operative word, of course. Because sports authorities, like governments, will never act out of morality. They will act out of business interests when they are forced to act by the people, by the citizens and fans of the sports, who are essentially clients and customers of the business that is sports. You basically force them to change by threatening the business as usual. I've never been much of a sports guy, but this latest intersection of Israeli politics and sports got me really interested. It got me thinking about the power of sports. Sports, like pop culture, which I am interested in, reaches the masses. It's simple. In the joy, the rules, the competition, it's also a great mirror of what's going on in society at the moment. And football in particular is about the survival instinct and that rival who poses a threat to us. When you think about it, it's exactly mirroring what's going on politically. So when you see this anger of these Israeli football hooligans in Amsterdam, where they just wreaked havoc on all the city, and then when they went to Paris as well, because they were disrupting the game, it was so telling, that scene of the football matches going on the field, and the Israeli fans are causing havoc on the stands. Some 4,000 law enforcement officers were deployed in and around the ground and on public transport, with elite forces gearing up outside the stadium 3 hours ahead of the match. Of course, all this costs money, right? The security, and also going against the wishes of your own citizenry. But this is what they do everywhere they go. And now they're forcing the governments in the different European cities to go against the wishes of their own people, against the interests of their own people, to protect these hooligans. Yet still, these colonial powers and European governments are going against the interests of their own people to run cover and diplomatic cover for Israel. Because the interests of the war machine and the profits of the war machine are still a lot bigger than the losses. But of course, they have to hide those interests by acting like they care about Jews. Girl, please.
French President Emmanuel Macron, along with former presidents Nicolas Sarkozy, François Hollande, are all attending this match. They say it's a show of solidarity after what happened in Amsterdam last week, that they say there's no place for things like anti-Semitism in France.
By the way, do you know the historian Ilan Pape? I've lip-synced to him in previous videos, and I'm going to feature him here because he talks about the importance of making that distinction between Judaism and Zionism. But also, more importantly, he's been talking a lot lately about the end of Israel as a Zionist entity coming close. But of course, the road to that end is very bloody, as we can see now. But his videos, the many videos you'll find of him online talking about the end of Zionism coming near, and this is the end of the project, gives me so much hope. And this is kind of like what inspired this video. Anyway, here's Ilan Pape, talking about the mistake of conflating Jews with what Israel is doing.
It's such a big lie that at the beginning we're a bit paralyzed when we try to challenge it because it's so false.
You know what I'm doing here in this video, talking about the end of Israel, it's more like kind of a hope, a manifestation. But what I love about Ilan Pape is that he is an actual historian who can say why there is evidence of this project coming to an end. And to think that this has gone on in history before gives me comfort, even though it doesn't end the fate of Palestinians right now, in the moment, but it gives me comfort knowing that this has an end. Because every empire has an end. And of course, when I talk about Israel and the empire, America, basically they're one. Like Israel and what Palestine represents, it's the butt end of the empire. That's why the war is so bloody, because the empire will not let go and will not give a chance to the global south to rise up. But, as Ilan Pape always says,
it's not different from any racist approach by any other group. Actually, it's not exceptional. The only exceptional part of it is the denial.
And indeed, what's different about Israel is the denial of what's going on, and acting like they're the victims. And speaking of denial, by the way, I'm called in denial, right? As in denial. It's kind of like a pun. Play on words. Now, speaking of in denial, I want to give a quick shout out to the people who donated on my last videos and the new members of the channel. Thank you guys so much. Love you. And I want to quickly plug my upcoming show in Amsterdam. It's on December 20th. Tickets linked below if you want to come see me live in action. Now back to the video. The reason Israelis are able to continue to live in this fantasy and do as they want is because the powers that be and the media stenographers indulge them in this fantasy like spoiled children throwing tantrums about anti-Semitism. And everyone's like, oh yeah, sorry. But if we are to give the benefit of the doubt to the powers that be, in this case, the heads of the UEFA who refused to ban Israel from football, you can look at it, oh, these are just sports people. They don't know much about politics.
We had a lot of organizations across world sport actually drafting their statements in response to the conflict using ChatGPT. They're not geopoliticians, they're not political scientists.
But now that we've given them the benefit of the doubt and some grace, let's point out their hypocrisy.
4 days after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, UEFA immediately banned all Russian teams from European football competition.
Because what FIFA and UEFA said that it would be impossible to hold any matches with Russian national team and that it would cause an enormous security risk. So this was said 4 days after Russia invaded Ukraine. At the time, there was no violence or anything at all happening. So they acted preemptively. But in case of Israel, they're willing to take all these security risks and put the local population of the hosting cities into this situation where the violence can easily escalate.
But again, supporting Israel is still beneficial to the empire. That's why it continues, and that's why the belligerence of these Israeli hooligans continues unabated. The hooligans whose belligerence represents the state of Israel. But oddly enough, this complete lack of awareness and arrogance and belligerence that they think is going to go on forever is going to be what brings about their end, because they're starting to act insane. Not just the way they're decimating Gaza on a scale that hasn't happened before, but also the insanity with which these people are behaving. Like, they're running around trying to convince the world, these hooligans, that they're little Anne Franks who are scared. Sorry. No, we all can see what you are. But you can trust and believe that this unconditional support for Israel that the empire gives is going to be completely cut off immediately. The second supporting Israel is going to become expensive for them. And then you will see how much this empire cares about Jews and anti-Semitism. But this empire doesn't care about anyone. who is standing in its way. It will crush anyone. I don't know if you know about Rachel Corrie, the American activist, blonde, white American activist in 2003, who stood in the way of a bulldozer that was about to demolish a Palestinian home, and they flattened her. They crushed her. And you know how some Zionists celebrate these days, the anniversary of Rachel's death? They make actual pancakes. Not at all deranged or psychotic. No. Just normal behavior. But this will continue to happen because the empire wants it to happen, because it wants to subjugate the global south. And Israel represents its weapon against the global south. That's why we have to speak the language of the empire, speak business. We have to make the support of Israel become expensive. Boycott Israel on all fronts, not just sports, goods. Download that No Thanks app, by the way. Even if the boycott doesn't yield results immediately now, we still have to do it. And I know it's very painful to think, okay, Palestinians are still going to die in the moment and we can't stop that, because you and I cannot stop that. But we must do what we can. If we continue to boycott, this project becomes too expensive. Like boycotting something as simple as McDonald's. I mean, I still find it very difficult to comprehend how people can still eat McDonald's. You know, McDonald's with their Happy Meals, they give meals to these Israeli soldiers as they kill children. So this company that's giving them free meals, ew, gross. And we have to teach our kids how gross this is. Basically, we shouldn't underestimate the power we have as people, even though it's not going to yield results immediately in the now. And if we bring it back to football, we have to distinguish between the fans, i.e. the people, and the football clubs, who are of course still part of the power structure, and they're not going to yield very quickly.
For instance, we see a lot of support from Celtic fans. They have been most loyal supporters of the Palestinian cause there is. At the time when the governing bodies are unable, fans have the power to do something about it through their actions, through their club, through boycotts, because for Palestine, this means a lot. People are watching. Even people in Gaza are watching.
Yes, they are watching, and they are grateful for the support, for the fact that we are not forgetting about them. All of us, including our Jewish brothers and sisters who stand in solidarity against this brutal enemy, all of us will not forget and will not stop talking about Palestine.
I could not be indifferent to the suffering of the Palestinians, nor did I want to be part of the society that caused these suffering.
You know, I always like to end my videos on a note of hope and a tribute to the Palestinian resilience and the Palestinian spirit by highlighting what's going on in Palestine. And because this video is about football, I chose to highlight a man by the name of Mahmoud. He lives in Gaza. He's a father of 2 daughters, and he used to be a football player. And every now and again, I see him posting about life before the war and how he can't even do anything. But the reason I got onto Mahmoud is because, if you know me, you know I'm obsessed with babies, and I follow this baby girl called Sila. She's his daughter. This girl is... No. It's criminal how cute she is. Those cheeks. Excuse me, miss. Who gave you permission to look this cute? Anyway, I'm linking the Instagram handle of Mahmoud, and on his Instagram page you will see all the links to where you can donate and help them.